like to play a game.
Saw X is the latest entry in the long-running franchise about unorthodox serial killer Jigsaw's twisted games that test victims' will to live. Now when it comes to this series, I enjoy them for what they are, because I'm a horror fan. But if I'm being honest, there's only a couple of films that I actually like. Besides the original, I really like the second and the third films. And I had a lot of fun with part 5 too. Now, there's a charm to this franchise, but with each new installment, the story just got more convoluted, and by the time the quote-unquote final chapter was released in 2010, the series had lost all its steam and was really just a shell of its former self. It was known back then as Saw 3D.
Now it is your turn to play.
Coincidentally, 3D in itself adds up to 7 because the letter D is the 4th letter in the alphabet.
You're a goddamn genius!
It became very clear that Saw really wasn't much of Saw without its core character and progenitor, John Kramer, played by the fantastic Tobin. Fast forward to 2023, and after 2 failed attempts to revive the franchise in recent years, there's a new game to be played in Saw X. This is both a sequel and a prequel, taking place only a few weeks after the events of the first film and sometime before part 2. Since I saw that eyeball vacuum trap in a trailer, I knew that we'd be in for an early Halloween treat, but I still wasn't sure if this would be relegated to simply moving from one test to another without much thread to hold it all together. What I mean is, I thought, is this going to be like the later sequels, a roller coaster of body horror without much reasoning, or will it manage to lean more towards the early days of much more simplistic yet methodically planned and still fucked up moral tests? Surprisingly, it was the latter. And I gotta say, this might be my second favorite film in the entire franchise, besides the first one. Now, one important factor here is that this is a character-driven story. John Kramer has been the main character throughout the entire franchise, but his screen presence has never really been at the forefront like his apprentices or other characters were. That changes here, and this is really a John Kramer story, a Jigsaw story. I'll admit, the movie does start kind of slow, and it doesn't really feel like you're watching a Saw movie in the beginning, but that's alright because in the process, we actually see Tobin portray the most complex and deeply emotional version of Jigsaw that we've ever seen. Yeah, he still has a fucked up moral code and twisted way of teaching others how to be grateful for their lives, but he's truly a desperate man here looking for any way he can to live. Tobin was in his 60s when the original came out, so it didn't take much to de-age him and make him look like this frail old man. You can tell he looks sick here. He doesn't look like he's at the top of his game. But Shawnee Smith's Amanda, on the other hand, who was in her 30s and is now in her mid-50s, looks noticeably aged. It bothered me, but sometimes you have to suspend disbelief. Eventually things do ramp up as a group of scammers who claim to have a magical cure for Jigsaw's cancer are brought forth for a new series of tests. These characters have a way of making you root for them less than any other time in the franchise. Like, they are despicable people. And Jigsaw is almost like an anti-hero here, kind of like what they were trying to do with Don't Breathe 2, but I think the landing stuck better here than it did there. The acting across the board is really good, especially Tobin performance, and the traps are diabolical and gut-wrenching at times, and there were jokes tossed in at moments from Amanda that made me laugh when I never expected to. Kind of demented, but it was surprisingly funny.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
There are some flaws though. It seems very unlikely that a weak, cancer-ridden, frail man who's traveled outside of his home country was able to not only find resources and a location to build these contraptions, but, to assemble them so quickly in his state. It doesn't make any sense. And as far as the victims go, I can't imagine anyone actually staying awake and alert as long as they did. I feel like any normal person would have passed out from shock way before getting as far as these characters do. But again, you gotta suspend disbelief. But my biggest gripe involves the ending. It kind of leaves us on a cliffhanger of sorts. Now, I don't want to say too much. I'm trying to keep this spoiler free. But yeah, despite these flaws, this is a really good entry in the Saw franchise. It's a true return to form. It's a little bit different. It's more character driven. The traps are well executed. And yeah, hopefully you guys can check it out. When you do see it, let me know what your thoughts are on the movie down below in the comments.
Live or die. The choice is yours.